the Battle of the Network Stars. Everybody's here for this game. Are you ever surprised at the proliferation or the coverage that you guys have built over 25 years of college football?
You know, I mean, I think it just shows how popular the sport is and how it continues to grow. I mean, the college football playoff, I think, has been a big win for the sport. It's generated a following for teams that are outside your area. And the BCS did that a little bit, but I think it's been ratcheted up even more so. So it just continues to grow and get bigger, and I think people love the pageantry and the clash of big games like this. And when the two teams are Ohio State and Penn State, and they've played the level of games they've played the last 3 years, it's highly anticipated. A lot of people are going to be there.
Why do you think their games are always so close?
Mostly because both teams are good, and both teams have a tough-mindedness about them to not give up, to come back. And we were talking earlier in the meeting, in essence, you take these last 3 games decided by a total of 5 points. Ohio State's won 2 of them, but they've been outscored by 1 point. Ohio State has lost the game it probably should have won, and won the 2 games it probably should have lost. So it's those types of things really build a rivalry and make it more intense. And I think you just have a couple of programs who are trying to compete for championships, and they have great players and they're well coached, and there's an intensity there to not back down if things start looking dire. So I think that's all of those things have put it together to be able to give us the great games we've had the last few years.
Urban Meyer said this is pretty much a rivalry for Penn State, but not so much Ohio State. Do you think this should be put on the rivalry list?
Everybody has that. Everybody has a couple of those games where it's more of a rivalry to one side. Penn State doesn't necessarily have a natural rival. In the Big Ten, Ohio State certainly does with Michigan over the years, and probably to a lesser degree some of the other Big Ten teams that they've played longer. But I think this qualifies as a rivalry, but it's certainly never going to be number 1 for Ohio State, but it might well be for Penn State.
What do you look at?
With all due respect to Pitt. But,
when you're looking at this matchup, what do you kind of break down as the keys to one side winning this game?
I think there are a couple of things that are pretty easy to look at. Number 1, with Chase Young being back. He's the most dynamic defensive player in the country. He might be the most dynamic player, period, in the country. And Penn State hasn't been great at protecting the quarterback, and I don't think they're going to be able to do so without giving their offensive linemen some help. When you do that, you take away a receiver. Is it going to be Freiermuth? Is it going to be somebody else? How are they going to keep Chase Young from totally wrecking their game plan? That's one thing. And on the other side, Penn State has to get pressure. I think they're going to be able to stop the run because they lead the nation in rush defense in terms of yards per carry. So I think that they'll make it, I won't say stop the run, they'll make it difficult for Ohio State to run. The question is, can they get pressure on Fields? Because I don't think that their secondary can hold up very long. And they haven't applied as much pressure of late as they did early in the season. So I think really it's kind of the same thing. Who can get the pressure? Can Penn State stop Chase Young from just wrecking their game plan? And on the other side, can Penn State find a way to basically cover up for their secondary a little bit, which might still be in the growth stages in terms of being elite?
And you guys are almost always covering an Ohio State, at least one Ohio State game a year. Have you seen an Ohio State game, or Ohio State team, that's this complete, that's been able to dominate like this in your time doing this?
Now, the way you asked the question at the end, that's been able to dominate like this, then in my time on game day, 5 years, my time covering college football at ESPN spans back more than 20 years. Right. So thinking back, I certainly haven't seen one that's been able to do it. I have seen one that is as talented. I think the 2015 team that when we were here lost to Michigan State probably had very similar talent to this team, but they did not dominate the way this team has. So I would say I haven't seen that. I've seen talented Ohio State teams, championship level team in 2014, one that was equally talented, but not one up to this point in the season that, to me, along with Clemson, are the 2 most complete teams in the country.
When you talk about the talent level, would you say maybe it's the coaching change that's managing their focus, that's keeping them able to avoid that, that one loss they shouldn't have had?
No, you know what? I mean, look, every team has a little bit of a different dynamic. I mean, you had a soon-to-be Hall of Fame coach who was here before, Urban, and he did a phenomenal job here. you can't account for the way team chemistry goes every now and then, and why a team comes up flat at Purdue or comes up flat at Iowa. It happens to everybody. It just happens sometimes, and I don't think it's it's an indictment of any previous staff or anything like that. I think sometimes that when you change the voice, that it can change the dynamic in the room. It almost always does if that voice is the head coach. Doesn't mean, look, I wouldn't go around saying that Ohio State's never going to miss Urban Meyer just because we all think Ryan Day is a superstar in coaching, and I do think that. I think he's brilliant, but so is Urban. So it's I think sometimes you just, I don't want to say catch lightning in a bottle. Ohio State has too much talent for that, but I would just say everything gels from a chemistry standpoint, and guys stay focused, and they're in the moment, and they're playing great, and they've avoided distractions and all of those things. But now comes the biggest test. Next week, games that they should win, and they're better, and then, if they win Saturday, then going on to the Big Ten championship game and another test there. So if they can maintain that, they'll be a tough out, and I haven't seen anything up to this point that would make you think that they can.
So would you say their talent is very obvious, they're an elite team, but maybe the chemistry, the brotherhood that they talk about is maybe an X factor to them?
Yeah, I think it has been. I think you see that with all championship teams, and I think that Ohio State has always had that. I think just because you have a flat performance doesn't mean that guys don't get along or that you have fractured chemistry. I'm not suggesting that for a second. Things happen. The other guy, my buddy Jim Herrick used to say, they have practice every day. They're giving away scholarships. Heck, coach, they're trying to beat us out there. And Purdue and Iowa weren't cannon fodder. They're trying to win the game. And so they did. So it's I don't think it's just because even if you're more talented, if you dump a game, it doesn't mean there's something wrong. It just means you didn't play well that night. And that's the way it goes sometimes.
Where do you think maybe Ohio State has changed under Ryan Day? Have we seen enough to really figure that out?
I think, the thing that we did a piece on earlier this year I thought was interesting in the way, he moved his office and really, tried to encourage guys to develop that kind of relationship with him. Just doing things his way, that's important. Urban's way was great. Urban's way was a championship way and a way that won a lot of games. But, if you try to go in and copy what the previous guy did exclusively and you don't stay within your own personality, then I don't think you're going to be as successful. And so Ryan, I think the number one thing he's done is that he's been very comfortable in the role. He's done a great job developing Justin Fields, who obviously highly talented, but he's done a tremendous job bringing him along. You see him getting better and better in the passing game all the time. And then, having the players that they have on defense. I mean, Young steals all the headlines, and rightfully so. But man, they got a lot of terrific players on defense, and so, I think that he's managed all that, and they view him as, somebody who feels comfortable and like he belongs in that role of head coach, and as a result, they're playing for him.
Rece, Clay was talking about the pregame shows that are here. Fox has kind of emerged this season. Do you guys kind of look at it as friendly competition, just with two pregame shows that have really good deep casts go against each other? Is something you guys not even think about, just kind of reinforcing what you guys feel like you do well as a show?
I think that's all you can do. I mean, it's like, you guys talk to coaches every week, and what do they say? Say, we have to focus on what we do well. And, we've established a brand over the years, and we have a personality to the show, I think, a feel and a vibe to the show that, that we're really happy with, and we continue to try to grow it. But I don't think we would ever look at, someone else's show and say, well, we have to react in a certain way. I know those guys, terrific guys. All of them, I'm sure they do a great job, but we're focused on doing the very best show we can every week, and that's how we approach it.
Anything else?